Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about a wonderful project from the photographer slash photojournalist slash journalist slash activist, Mr. Khaled Hasan. His project is called Living Stone. It is from 2004 to 2005 when he did it. We're going to jump right in. So this is Hassan, Khaled Hassan, born 1981 from the town of Dhaka, or the city of Dhaka, pardon me, which is the capital of Bangladesh. As you can see, he is a stylish gentleman. He's been a professional photographer slash journalist since 2001. He likes to use his talents and his platform to tell personal stories and highlight people who are vulnerable and marginalized in his region, and he has a lot of projects that do just that, which we'll get to toward the end of the program today. He's been exhibited all over the world, all throughout Asia, the US, Russia, Japan, the UK. He is as top tier as they come in that regard, and he has been in tons of magazines. Too many to name. Not a case of he's been in one or two big magazines and a bunch of regional things. He has been in a lot of international publications for a very long time. One thing that was interesting when researching him is that the name Khaled Hassan is actually very common, and I came across the other Khaled Hassan, who tragically departed this world in 2005. One report said it was a tragic accident, the other report said it was brain bleed, one report said liver failure. I can't tell, but this man's hair is awesome. His music was a gift to the world, so I wanted to give him a shout out. Many, many, many people have this name, so if you get inspired by the work of Khaled Hassan, the photographer, when you Google him, make sure you're finding that guy's face and not this guy. Rest in peace, the other Khaled Hassan. So we're going to talk about Living Stone. Um, One thing I want to point out is I did use sections of his photograph or of his photographs throughout this presentation. I didn't use any of the whole photographs, in part because every website that features them has them on lock. There's some very, very well-designed websites. So actually trying to find high-res copies to save to my desktop was difficult, which I'm fine with because I'd really encourage you to go check the work out for yourself. So I've highlighted some sections of the photographs here. Livingstone, tremendous story behind this. It's highlighting the people of Jaflong, which is a area in the north of Bangladesh along the Peon River, just near the border of India. These people are destitute. They have no options, nowhere to go for the most part, and they crush stones that they sift out of the river and they sell them to construction companies who use them to lay down temporary roads for logging or other things. And basically, they just pick these stones up. The ones they can crush, they crush them to dust, and then they sell them to construction companies for that. The work, as you might imagine, is dangerous. These people are literally walking up with the clothes on their back and they're crushing rocks all day. They don't have the tools, they don't have machinery to use. They're crushing rocks basically by hand, washing them in the river, and then selling them by the pound. And thousands of locals and people who are transient come through and do this kind of work. In his statement on this, Hassan said that he estimates that upwards of 10,000 people or maybe more come through and do this kind of work. Here is a scene that he took along the river because a lot of workers travel up and down the river by boat, and some do come by foot, but he's got a lot of photos of people arriving in boats and working in boats and using the boats and the currents of the river to transport their rocks up and down where they need to go. As you can see here, for some reason, Screencast-O-Matic is not letting my mouse work, so I apologize. But if you look in the upper third of that photo, you can see there's some machinery in the background there, and then obviously the workers are in front. This is a tremendous photo. Obviously, we've got registers here. In the top third, we have the hill to the left, we have machinery to the right. In the middle, we have it's dark, it's a sharp contrast to the water. We see the machinery reflected. Just brilliant, brilliant, brilliant photo. In the bottom, of course, we have the people closest to the viewer. And the one gentleman on the left there is wearing a bright white shirt. He is obviously the center point of what we have there. Tremendous photo highlighting the work of the people. And also Hassan, all of his work is in black and white. I failed to mention that earlier. So that's going to be a tremendous aid to him in showing this region, which is otherwise quite colorful. Um, so the area was known for the river. It was known for its tea fields, which was a thing in the tea gardens. A lot of flora, a lot of fauna, but the unregulated work and construction and travel through this area has destroyed it. Farmers and of all sizes, local farmers and also any commercial agricultural operations here have basically just ceased because the land is no longer good. The dust from the constant construction and rock crushing and debris has basically just rendered the area destitute in terms of agriculture. This is another photo, apropos of something, I'm sure. I don't have the story behind this photo, but just gives you an idea of the desolation that we have here. This isn't a tree, obviously. It's just fallen over, and the land around it is just picked clean. The river there in the background, you see, it's just barren. Obviously, this is a black and white photo. They're obviously green. We see the leaves in the foreground, but this really shows just how just stripped bare, if I may quote Marcel Duchamp, how stripped how stripped this land is of any redemptive quality other than its ability for people to fish out rocks and sell them by the pound. In an effort to survive, the people are destroying the very land underneath them. Um, and the runoff from the rivers now as a result of that work is destroying everything in the area outside of just the ability to grow crops, but also the condition of the fishing markets and the animals there, and the people. The people are at great risk here. The area is along the Indian border. There is not a clear demarcation of those lines, so you have people coming across the borders, and in a less than reputable website I came across when researching this, apparently the Indian government there is not fond of people coming over from Bangladesh. I did not use that as a source here because it just seemed kind of sketchy. But I mean, obviously, even without really being clued into, Indo-Bangladeshi affairs, living in America here, we know the border situation here, while not having this sort of issue, is tumultuous and violent and dangerous for people. And so that seems to be the case here. And this desolation, especially in this photo, is highlighted in a lot of Hassan's work. The tree is gone, the boat beside it is rotten and dilapidated. I'm just giving an example of what the people here face every day. Here is a striking picture of one of the rock crushers that worked there along with his wife in the background. Hassan spent a lot of time with these people, learning their stories, finding out where they come from. The economy is unregulated here. There are no protection for workers, and no protection from the sense of there is no protection for of their civil rights. There's also no protection in terms of their health. One thing that I came across while researching this, and again, a lot of sketchy websites talking about this, but one thing that continued to come up time and again was that the children were most affected because, in addition to having no protection, obviously children are very vulnerable to a lot of things. A lot of them suffering with breathing issues due to the dust they're inhaling all day, and hearing loss because of the noise from the machinery. Hassan's work, he highlights how unsustainable this system was, but that most people had no other alternatives, as we're going to learn on the next slide here with this gentleman and this portrait. Read this. This is from the artist on his on an interview about this project. For the last 4 years, Probal Das, 67, and his wife Priti Rana Das, 39, have both been working as day laborers. They have two daughters, and 2 years ago they each earned about 479 daily. Now they make only about 217 daily. Some days they get around $1.15. One thing that Hassan spoke about when talking about this project was that for workers in the region, they had no other alternatives to go and work. They did not have a lot of options. So they flocked to this area and they basically just picked it dry, for lack of a better phrase. And as a result, they're working more now but earning less because the region is literally being picked clean of rock. In some areas, they're down to, I guess, what would be bedrock when the rivers are dry during the winter, and there's literally nothing left to scrape from the ground. But these workers now are entrenched in this area and they have nowhere to go. So the land is being just destroyed, but these people's lives are in just as bad shape because they have no options. And we see again in this photograph contrast. I will be the first to admit I'm not a huge photo guy, so forgive me for not, like, you could tell me that this photograph is very easy to take, and I'd believe it because I don't know any better. As a layman to photography, I look at this photo and I think it's amazing because the gentleman, Probal Das, to the left here, his face is so crisp, it is so clean. We can see his eyes, we see the reflection in his eyes. It obviously is a tremendous high resolution picture, but the contrast created by the darkness of his skin and the shadow along the edge of the scarf with the white in his beard. The man is 67 years old. God knows what kind of life he's had doing this work for years at this point. And you see that struggle. You see that in the lines in his face. You see that longing that he has. And then there's his wife in the background, literally, and she's out of focus. So is Hassan trying to make a statement here that the husband is the leader? He's obviously much older than she is. He makes the decisions, that he is at the forefront of this issue for their family while she supports them from the back? Or is maybe Hassan trying to say that the man here has led them to this and then the woman was brought along and that's why she's out of focus? I'm sure there's a lot of ways you could interpret that. A striking photo. Here is another picture taken by Hassan. I had to crop this quite a bit. I'll show you the full photo here in a moment. This is a picture of what the river looks like when it dries up in the wintertime. So where that truck is driving would actually be water most months out of the year. Hassan wanted to point out that the ecological balance in this area is completely upended because so much rock gets picked that the current of the river is impacted, nature is impacted in all possible levels, and the debris, the refuse, and the rocks that don't get needed just get tossed about haphazardly. So there's no protection for the workers, no protection for the planet either. You can see across the river there, it's lush and it's green, and well, it would be green if it wasn't black and white, but you can tell that those are obviously trees. And on this side, it's just barren, which that again is a contrast of both subject and contrast of value in the lush green in the back, and then in the gray and the mottled rocks in the foreground. Now, one thing about this project that I've learned researching Hassan, there's actually good news here. Um, in a few years after Hassan's project became popular, there have been a lot of positive changes. In 2007, the government began a reforestation project to bring the area back to its former glory. Apparently, a lot of locals and a lot of farmers, especially, got together to petition the government and say, hey, this is not safe. People are dying, children are dying. We can't grow anything. People are starving. We need to do this. And I found a local newspaper that talked about the government planning I think there was 100 acres altogether of trees, and they're going to let wild growth take over, and they were going to stop people from crushing rocks in the area, and it appears to be a growing tourist destination. This photo was actually taken off of a TripAdvisor review from this year. However, the same photo was cropped three different ways and put on three different reviews of the same thing on TripAdvisor. And then there's also this picture supplied by the Bangladeshi government of this tourist enjoying her day at the river with some gentlemen in machine guns keeping her safe, no doubt. So while there's clearly some return to nature in the area, and hopefully the people who were affected by that have had some sort of recompense or some sort of assistance, I can't verify that the work has made that much of a positive difference, but the work done by Hassan is valuable in its own right. So I will upload this. Here are links to some things that I used to get information for this project. And I just want to encourage you real quick, please visit Hasan on his website. We're going to go there very fast. It's KhaledHasan.com. On there, he has a lot of photos from the area. They're all in high def. They're tremendous. He also has some books for sale. A lot of great work. Please check it out. I think it's a very worthy thing. Thank you for your time.